Smart Chiropractor Show, Mindset Mentor segment. Jason, we are going to talk today about a topic that I hadn't thought about. I had never even heard brought up until you and I started discussing this a few months ago, and you started to develop this concept around the 5 types of new patients. And this is so important for any docs out there. If you are spending any money on advertising, if you're doing any marketing whatsoever, this is a segment that you're going to want to pay attention to because it's probably not how you've thought or considered patient acquisition in the past. Jason, with that, I'm going to kick it over to you to talk down what are the 5 types of new patients and why do docs out there need to pay attention to this incredibly important concept?
You know, you and I have been spending the last several years really helping chiropractors understand what we refer to as real marketing. And the challenge, the headwinds that we faced every time we do that is that the listeners, chiropractors, typically, are polite. They listen. They go, that's interesting. Wow, never thought of it that way before. And then they end up with this conclusion of, but is it going to get me more new patients? And after, I'd say more than a decade or so of, both of us in different ways, really trying to help chiropractors understand what chiropractors try to get their patients to understand, which is the concept of a process versus an event, right? That there's a difference between finding and correcting the cause of your problem and healing through your issue versus just masking the symptom for quick relief. Of course, we'll park the hypocrisy to the side for right now and just stay on topic, which is that chiropractors have been marketed to by marketers to really misunderstand the real sense of growing your practice. And so, like the public has, through the pharmaceutical industry's influence, learned to ask questions like, well, isn't there a drug for that can get me feeling better immediately? That's the common question, right? You go, well, let's try to heal it. Let's try to find the cause. You don't need drugs. You can use your hands only. People are brainwashed to go, huh? What? That doesn't make any sense. And of course, that's silly. Well, when it comes to marketing, many chiropractors unfortunately do the same thing that the public does. And that's misunderstand how this whole thing is supposed to work. So let's get to the point. We developed that there are 5 types of new patients so that you have a better understanding of what to do to reach your goals. So let's break them down. I'm going to go through them quickly and then we can sort of deconstruct them individually afterwards. But the number one best new patient you could possibly ask for moving forward is to make sure that you have processes and systems and, most importantly, communication programs in place to keep your current patients. Now, that sounds so ridiculously obvious, like, well, the best thing you could do is to be healthy. But the reality is it's 100% true. And unless you've got habits in place, and in business terms, systems in place, then it's ultimately going to fail for you. There's no way that you can medicate your way to better health. I'm not saying drugs are bad. I'm not saying you shouldn't take medicine. I'm not saying there's not a time and place for emergency care. What I'm saying is it's definitely not the prescription for health. Just like more new patients will never be the prescription for practice growth unless you've got systems in place to keep your current patients. Let me make it super simple. If you have a bucket and you pour, metaphorically, new patients, water, you pour something into the bucket. And if the hole at the bottom of the bucket is the same size as the hole in the top of the bucket, you can get as many new patients as you can possibly ask for and dream of. You can see the cycle. If nothing sticks and stays, then you're on an addictive cycle to constantly need to pour more new whatever, water or new patients into the bucket, and you never win. And yet, that's the way many, if not most, chiropractors in today's world actually think of. This is a mindset segment. That's how most chiropractors think of their practice. You go, what kind of systems do you have in place to communicate with the patients who have been seeing you for all this time? What? What do you mean? What kind of what? We call them when they miss their appointments. We call them if they've missed after 30 days. Most do not have an ongoing, let's call it lifestyle habit or business process in order to be able to make sure that the people that come stick around. That doesn't mean you're convincing them to do something they don't want to do. It doesn't mean you're forcing everyone to stay forever. None of those things. It means that you've got systems and processes in place around communication strategies that continue to provide value for the people that came in to see you at one time. You did the hard part. You encouraged them. You attracted them. You had something that got them into your practice. And the key is to encourage those that are right for your practice to stick around. So let's fly through them. The best new patient you could possibly ask for is keeping your current patient. The second best new patient you can ask for is a referral from your current patient, a friend, a family member, coworker, neighbor, coworker of your current people. Why? Every chiropractor knows the difference between somebody referred and somebody who comes in from a discount ad. You know the difference. The third best type of new patient is somebody who's following you, somebody who's already on your email list or somebody who follows you on social media. That you have proactive communications that focus on providing value to your audience so that they go, wow, that's interesting. I never knew that before. I should give this a try. Those are the three top types of new patients. Now let's move into a separate category. The fourth best type of new patient, this is when paid advertising starts kicking in. If you're going to invest or spend money, depending on your outcome, if you're going to invest or spend money on advertising, the best advertising you could possibly do is by advertising to the people already following you. It's called retargeting. So 1, 2, and 3 do not require money. They do not require advertising dollars. They are not sort of dollars that are flushed down the drain in that once you paid for the ad and the ad is run, that's all you got for it. So the fifth best type of new patient is the type of new patient most chiropractors are all paying premiums to try to compete and attract. And that's the stranger, oftentimes looking for a discount, oftentimes looking for quick relief, and may or may not have insurance to cover it, and may or may not be your ideal target client. So mindset matters because the things you do, the things you pay for or invest in have to do with the way you think about them. And if you're like most chiropractors, continuing to believe what I think is a fallacy, that the most important thing you can be doing is to be attracting more new patients without putting in systems in place to make sure that those top 3 patients continue to see you, then you're missing the boat, in our opinion. And unfortunately, that's why many chiropractors we've spoken to over the I can say decades, I can't believe it's been that long, but it's true, over the decades, just continue to stay stuck like the rest of the world continues to stay stuck. Where's the drug for my quick relief to get me out of pain so I can get back to the things that got me in trouble in the first place? And that's often the way chiropractors think of marketing, which unfortunately is limited to advertising for most chiropractors most of the time. Since you're watching the Smart Chiropractor show, we're here to break and dispel those myths. Jeff, what did I miss on all of that? Maybe let's break down free content marketing versus paid advertising and how each of those appeals to each of those different markets.
That's a great question, Jason, and I don't think you missed a thing. The key aspect there is what you described, which is understanding that there is a difference, first of all, just being aware that there is a difference between content marketing for free and paid advertising. The second component of that is I like to think of it like the meal. Content marketing is the meal, and the salt should be the paid advertising. A little bit can go a long way, but if a little bit too much and overdoes it, and you certainly ruin a good thing. So a little bit of paid advertising, specifically in the retargeting realm, can be a fantastic idea to get a practice, juiced up, to get a little bit of that extra little bit of edge, but it's not the meal. You can't replace the meal with a pile of salt. So that's a key aspect of the difference between the two. Now, I like to think of it, we're focused on content marketing within the Smart Chiropractor. There's no, hidden aspects of that. And I like to think of it that our docs have an advantage because we do things differently. And that's what it comes down to. So when you focus on content first through a teach and invite strategy, it gives you the opportunity to really build trust, to build relationships, to play that long game, and to establish your brand all during the same course of time. Yes, you're attracting new patients. Yes, you can improve your retention. Yes, you can have more consistent reactivations coming in. That's a byproduct of the actions that you take each and every day. And I think, the pillar of all marketing within the chiropractic space should be content first. And this isn't a controversial thought whatsoever. Who knows what chiropractors do? Nobody, right? Most chiropractors don't know what another chiropractor does. So do we think that education and a teach and invite philosophy is a good idea? Of course we do. Even if we had 50% utilization, I'd probably still say the same thing. However, when we hover around 10 to 15, some people say we're close to 20. I'm going to say we're probably closer to 7 or 8 personally, percent utilization. We got a long way to go for people to have a better understanding of who we are and what we do as a profession. But as that speaks to you locally, Doc, the question is, what are you doing to get that message out there? And that's where content marketing, consistent communication, teaching and inviting consistently, as we like to call it, really focuses upon those top 3 new patient types. And that is going to be the cheapest, the most ideal, and the most sustainable long-term. Jason, those are my thoughts. How do you think about that?
You brought up a really important point, again, that most chiropractors, when they hear, go, well, that's obvious, but don't think about. And that is putting out messaging about chiropractic in general does not give your audience, give the reader, the listener, the watcher, any particular deeper understanding of why they should choose you as a chiropractor. And as you mentioned, Jeff, and it's 100% true, again, we all know it, chiropractors do different things, for better and for worse. However you want to see that, the reality is you could line 10 chiropractors up in front of a group of chiropractors, and none of them could tell you which chiropractor does what, even though they all have the same degree and the same title. So we do ourselves a disservice by simply advertising chiropractic services, because the fact is nobody really knows what that means in your office. And that is a shortcoming that is always going to be there until we think of it differently and therefore do different things. And the number one most important thing you can be doing is distinguishing yourself, distinguishing your practice, highlighting your specialties, focusing on your target audience of who you most like to work with and who most likes to work with you, who gets the best results, best outcomes. Who are the people that really look to you and get the highest value? Meaning they would be willing to invest the most and stick around the longest. Unless you're putting messaging out like that on a consistent basis, then the people you attract, it's almost like blind dating with no filters, that you just never know who's going to walk in for what reasons. And yet, if you can start saying, I'm looking for this kind of person with these kinds of hobbies and these kinds of activities, maybe even this type of socioeconomic level, then you're going to have a higher percentage shot of making sure you're attracting your ideal client. And that's not just selfish for you. That's good for your staff and your team. And that's even better for people, because nobody likes to waste their time, I guess I'll say, except for one group of people. And that's deal shoppers. Deal shoppers are more than willing to drive across town and spend minutes, if not hours, to go get a deal. And wouldn't it be interesting to know that level 5 type new patients are exactly that kind of person? They're looking for deals. They're coming in because it's the cheapest massage in town. And okay, if you try to upsell them on something else, they don't mind. They took the deal. It's like the timeshare deal. You go, you get the benefit, you sit through the 2 hours, you've got the time, you may not have the money, and you're willing to spend your time in order to be able to save a few bucks. If that's your ideal client, then keep the advertising game going, the discount advertising game, that is. And if you recognize the insanity in all of that, which hopefully you do, then you start realizing maybe you got to start thinking differently about it. And the first step is to start thinking about content marketing, free content marketing. What's your message? Who's your audience? And how can you best connect on a consistent basis? We call it TIC, teach and invite consistently. The only question you've got to ask is, what are you going to teach? Who are you going to teach it to? And how are you going to build systems to keep it consistently? That's the secret formula for mindset this week. That's my 2 cents.
I could not agree more. This is a very important concept. If you are looking to build and grow your practice and you have not considered these 5 types of new patients, rewind this video a little bit once we finish, take a look at that graphic, really get familiar with it, and then dial in, okay, where am I spending time, effort, and energy? Because that is really going to determine the results that you get. Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Chiropractor. We are posting videos on how you can market your chiropractic practice in a way that teach and invites consistently. We have found that is the magic formula to big time growth. So if you like this video, be sure to comment down below, smash that subscribe button, or visit us at thesmartchiropractor.com.